Hello everyone, welcome back to Spirit Island. I'm Kayla North, and today is going to be a bit of an experiment. We're going to be trying to go through a Thunderspeaker game here against Sweden 2, and we're going to be doing an Unpacked game. What do I mean by that? I mean, I'm going to try and explain in detail every aspect of my thought process. I'm going to try and avoid shortcuts. I'm probably going to use some slang or jargon, but I will try to explain it if I do. And I want to just try and go into as much detail as I can. For those of you who are very familiar with the game, this might feel repetitive, but I hope you'll stick with me and give me some feedback on whether this works, whether this doesn't work. I'd love to hear back from you from everyone on how this actually turned out. So we're going to be playing Thunderspeaker. I'm going to start with a little bit of an overview of Thunderspeaker's tech, shall we say. So its power cards and its panel. Now, the power cards I think of as each filling a different role. So we'll talk about each of them for a moment here. Manifestation of Power and Glory does a fear, and then each Dahan deals damage equal to the number of your presence discs in target land. It has to target a land with Dahan at range 0, which you usually have those as Thunderspeaker. And it is slow. Now, Manifestation of Power and Glory is what I like to call a hammer or a nuke. It's usually going to be doing minimum 4 damage, often doing ridiculous amounts beyond that. It's very good for clearing a built-up land. It's very good at just clearing out a ton of invaders at once, generating a bunch of fear. It's a very nice power. It's also your most expensive power, and Thunderspeaker doesn't have a great energy track, but it does have a +4 energy on its third growth option. So we will probably be using that in order to play Manifestation of Power and Glory at some point during the game. There's the possibility that we won't, depending on how we progress down the tracks, but most likely it's going to be funded by this growth option. Next up is Sudden Ambush. This is a bit of Explorer Destruction. It's a fast power for 2 energy, range 1, targets any land. You can gather a Dahan, and then each Dahan destroys an Explorer. For this adversary at least, this is almost always going to destroy 1 Explorer in a land that has only 1 Explorer. We're going to use this to clear a land, stop it from building, make it not a problem. We'll talk a little bit more when we get to talking about Sweden, but if Sweden can't build and ravage, Sweden just collapses. And so we are going to use this, if we need to take out those individual Explorer lands. So we've got our hammer, we've got our Explorer control. Next up is our Dahan control, or Dahan movement, shall I say. Voice of Thunder, it's a free power, which is really good. Again, with talking about our energy track not being stellar. Range 1, slow, targets any land, push up to 4 Dahan, or if invaders are present, 2 fear. We will almost always be using the first mode of this power, of pushing up to 4 Dahan. There are some interesting edge cases where you'd want to use the 2 fear mode. I have generally not found them to be that common. Usually we're destroying enough invaders that you just get enough fear to win the game, or you potentially even get a terror level 1 victory because you just cleared all the invaders. So I don't often use this 2 fear mode, but it is there in a pinch. If we're close to getting to either terror level 2 or terror level 3, Voice of Thunder can in fact push us over the edge. Finally, Words of Warning is our defend power. Costs 1, fast, range of 1 to a land with Dahan, and that's important. It can't defend lands without Dahan. So that actually can be a bit of a problem sometimes, where they're ravaging in a land that you haven't managed to get Dahan into and you want to stop the blight, or they're ravaging for more than 4, which defend 3 brings a ravage of 4 down to 1, which stops the blight and stops any Dahan dying. But you don't, if they're ravaging for, say, 6, so like an Explorer plus a town plus a city, then defend 3 isn't going to do enough, and you'd almost rather evacuate the Dahan, given Thunderspeaker's special rule Sworn to Victory, where after invaders ravage, for each Dahan destroyed in that ravage, destroy 1 of your presence discs within range 1. So we really don't want to let Dahan die in ravages. That's very bad for us. And in general, we actually just don't want Dahan to die, because Dahan are a large part of where we generate power. Whether it's Manifestation of Power and Glory, Sudden Ambush, Lead the Furious Assault, which we'll get to in a moment, or just making counterattacks with something like Words of Warning. The second part of Words of Warning: during Ravage, Dahan and target land deal damage simultaneously with invaders. This is a kind of weird effect. It can occasionally be really useful. For example, if you have a land that's going to ravage for a bunch, and you have a big stack of Dahan in there, and you just need that land to clear in order to win the game, you can sacrifice a bunch of Dahan, let them all deal damage simultaneously, and as long as you don't lose all your presence discs, that will potentially let you just win the game outright. That doesn't tend to come up very often, but it definitely can happen. Thunderspeaker has 2 innate powers. Gather the Warriors is another Dahan movement power, much like Voice of Thunder. The first line you can mostly ignore. It'll be relevant near the end of the game, probably, but it requires 4 air to speed the power from slow to fast. The second line is if you have 1 animal element, which you have 2 cards in your starting hand with animal elements, Sudden Ambush and Words of Warning, then you may gather up to, or then you get to gather up to 1 Dahan per air element you have, and push up to 1 Dahan per sun element you have. This could be gather 2 Dahan, it could be gather 2 Dahan, push 2 Dahan, it could be gather 3 Dahan, push 1 Dahan, it could be gather 4 Dahan, push 2 Dahan. You'll see all kinds of combinations of this depending on how the game is going. Usually this is going to be used to position Dahan for the turn after the current one. Sometimes you'll use it to set Dahan up for, say, Manifestation of Power and Glory on the current turn, or Lead the Furious Assault on the current turn. But this is one where we really want to be thinking ahead and trying to think about where do we want Dahan, not now, but next turn. Finally, Lead the Furious Assault. Speed 0 or speed slow, range 0, any land. Again, it can be fast if you have 4 air. That'll be relevant once we ideally get to 3 card plays and have our air element unlocked. Because all of our powers have air. So if we get to the point where we can play 3 of our starting powers plus having this air element unlocked from our tracks, we can get that power speed up on both of these. If you have 2 sun and 1 fire, destroy 1 town for every 2 Dahan in target land. If you have 4 sun, 3 fire, destroy 1 city for every 3 Dahan in target land. I almost never see this last line. It can come up. It's very rare. It's very hard to get to, or at least the way I play Thunderspeaker, it's very hard to get to, especially in solo where you're not going to be able to count on any elemental support from a teammate. The first line, though, or the middle line, I guess, destroy 1 town for every 2 Dahan in target land, is incredibly useful. This is going to this 2 sun 1 fire is very easy to reach with your hand, especially if you play Manifestation of Power and Glory, in which case you only need Voice of Thunder or Words of Warning in addition to it in order to get it. If you go along your top track far enough to get these fire and sun elements, you only need 1 sun in order to get it, and 3 of your 4 powers have sun element. So you're very often going to get this. This effect can destroy more than 1 town. Often it doesn't. You will occasionally see a situation where it does do that, and that's the optimal play, but often you're going to want to take a land that has, say, an explorer and a town in it and is about to ravage. You put 2 Dahan in there, you destroy the town, and then you leave the Dahan there to kill the explorer and the ravage counterattack. Other than that, it's a very useful power, especially when combined with Manifestation of Power and Glory early in the game, to help you clear out a more built-up land that you focus Dahan on. That might come up in our game, I'm not sure, but it's generally a very useful power. It solves a land most of the time when you use it. I guess growth options I should talk about for a moment. Your Reclaim is where you get to draft, and you get to draft twice. I'm not expecting the cards we draft to have a huge impact on our game. It is possible that we'll get something that will replace one of our uniques in our play patterns, but I find with Thunderspeaker often you can get away with playing very few of your drafted cards. There are ways to build Thunderspeaker such that you draft majors and use your +4 energy button over here on growth 3 in order to play those majors, and that could come up in this game, but I think is again unlikely, just because our starting kit is actually already pretty good at handling Sweden. Next up is our second growth. You get to add 2 presents from your tracks, both to lands with Dahan, 1 at range 2, 1 at range 1. This is your bread and butter. This gets you lots of presents off your tracks. Thunderspeaker is what some people call a 0-2-1 spirit, where the first growth with the reclaim growth gives 0 presents, the middle growth gives 2 presents, and the third growth gives 1 presents. Thunderspeaker is one where it's really nice to be able to take the 2 presents growth. There are certainly times, and I've talked about using this third growth for the +4 energy button several times now already, but we definitely want to be able to use the middle growth whenever we can, just because we want to actually get up to probably about the 2 energy, 3 card play spot, which is going to be 5 presents off of our tracks. So you can try to go for the Fire and Sun and even the 3 energy spot if you want to, but I think it's usually more important to focus on getting up to that 3 card plays plus the air element to speed up these 2 powers. Also, this Reclaim 1 spot here on the bottom track is very tempting and can be very useful near the end of the game. So I'm likely to try and build Thunderspeaker this game to 2 energy, 3 card plays, and a Reclaim 1. Now, that may not happen. We may change plans and do something else, but that is the build that I tend to favor. And I think that's about everything to say about Thunderspeaker right now. Thunderspeaker, ally of the Dahan, I guess I didn't explain that. Your presence discs may move with Dahan. It's very important. You almost always will move your presence with your Dahan. There are a few situations where you won't, usually because you want to leave a presence and a Dahan behind. But you very often will be moving those presence discs with your Dahan. All right, then let's talk about the adversary a little bit. So, Kingdom of Sweden. First thing up is the loss condition. There is none. So that's great. We don't have to worry about that. Escalation, swayed by the invaders. After invaders explore into each land, if that land has at least as many invaders as Dahan, replace 1 Dahan with 1 town. This is absolutely terrible for Thunderspeaker. You really, really don't want this to happen. Losing a Dahan is already bad enough. Having that Dahan turn into a town is horrific. We will be playing as cautiously as we can to avoid this escalation. I say cautiously. We might be playing very aggressively to avoid the escalation, but we're going to be paying attention to that as much as we can when we get to stage 2. Again, Sweden is one of those where, like, if you can turn off some of this invader text, they just get to be very much like the base game, and they're much easier to defeat. Level 1 of Sweden keeps the fear deck the same and has the effect Heavy Mining. If the invaders do at least 6 damage to the land during Ravage, add an extra Blight. The additional Blight does not destroy presence or cause cascades, which is nice, but it is an extra Blight off the card. Generally speaking, we don't want to let Sweden do at least 6 damage in a Ravage. That shouldn't be too crazy to do at this difficulty level. Their higher level abilities make that much, much trickier. But we generally want to be letting them deal 5 damage or less, and preferably just stopping them from adding Blight at all. So if we can do that, we can shut this ability off, and it just doesn't do anything to hurt us beyond, again, just the base game. Level 2 adds a Fear card to Terror level 2. Population pressure at home. During setup, on each board, add a city to land 4. On boards where land 4 starts with a Blight, put that Blight in land 5 instead. So, they're going to make this a lot more annoying to deal with by adding a second city to the board, but at least that land isn't going to be blighted at the very least. So, we will be able to, if that land blights, at least not cascade. The biggest thing about this level is probably actually the extra Fear card in Terror level 2, where that's going to slow down if we want to try and push for a Terror level 3 victory. That's going to be an extra 4 Fear we need to generate. That isn't a huge deal at this level, but it is one where it definitely incentivizes trying to take out the adversary at Terror level 2 or even Terror level 1 so that we don't have to worry about generating that extra 4 Fear. To win at Terror level 2, we need to generate at least 12 Fear to get through 3 Fear cards, because this is a solo game, so 4 Fear per player. If we want to get to Terror level 3, we're going to have to actually generate 28 total Fear, which is going to be a lot harder, but again, we'll probably get enough to do the 12 Fear just from the buildings that they create. The board starts with 2 cities and a town thanks to population pressure at home, and so that's already 5 fear of the 12 we need. They will almost certainly be able to build at least some things, so we will get more fear from that. So, with the spirit and adversary in mind, I have put together a list of potential targets. And the targets, I hope this turns out right. I hope that's legible for everyone. But basic idea is we want to get to 2 energy, 3 card plays. So 2E/3 CP, that's 2 energy and 3 card plays. We want to get to terror level 2 or higher. So that's 12 fear to get to terror level 2 and 28 fear to get to terror level 3. And I suppose getting through the whole fear deck is terror level 4, we would get a victory instantly if we're 40 fear, but that's almost certainly not going to happen. We're too focused on offense and not focused enough on fear generation. We do not want to let Sweden convert to Han with their escalation. We very much want to avoid that. If it happens, it happens, but we are going to play to try and stop that from happening. Finally, we want to avoid double blight. That from Sweden's first level, the heavy mining. Just because if they do get to do that, it does flip the blight card much faster. It can be very frustrating, and we can actually blight out against Sweden somewhat more easily because of that rule. It's not going to be absolutely terrible if we let 1 or maybe even 2 of these go through, but we want to avoid them as much as we can. All right, with all that said, double check. Yeah, we've got Branching Claw, Jagged Earth, Nature Incarnate, and Events all turned on. And I do want those. I picked board D randomly. Board D is actually pretty interesting for Thunderspeaker because the lands with 2 Dahan, where your presence starts, I maybe should have said that, is Thunderspeaker starts with 2 presence on the board, 1 in each of the 2 lands with the most Dahan. So it's going to start in land 1 and land 7. So they manage to actually consolidate their presence very quickly if they want to. That can be very useful if, for example, Sands Explore and land 7 is going to build a city. If Sands Explorer will actually be very sad in some ways because we're getting a city in land 4 to start with, and so that land is going to be very hard to deal with because, as you can see, most of our Dahan are in fact 2 lands away from there. So it's going to be hard to get them there in time. Otherwise, Board D is notorious for a couple of things: wetlands on land 1 and 3, and this really long land 1 that touches land 8, 7, 5, and 2. I don't know that there's too much to say about it. I think this is actually a pretty good board for Thunderspeaker overall because you can group your Dahan up very easily. It's probably pretty good for taking on Sweden for that reason as well, where if we want to have Dahan outnumber invaders after the explorers so that they don't get converted by the escalation. So after the invaders explore, the conversion happens if there's at least as many invaders total as Dahan, which if there's 2 Dahan in a land and 1 building, and they put an explorer in there, suddenly there's as many invaders as Dahan, and so you lose a Dahan. So this can really sneak up on you sometimes, and there's some events that can make it really sneak up on you as well. Events that add double explorers, things like that, randomly getting a building or an explorer added to a land you weren't expecting to have it in. Those things can all make the explorers very painful. So yeah, other than that, I don't think there's too much to say about the board right away. So let's get into the game itself. All right, our first explore is mountains. I hope that targets isn't blocking that too much. The only things under here are sort of the explore card, the minor power deck, the major power deck, and the Sweden reminder. So I don't think we need to see that. And if we click on the Sweden reminder, it's going to pop up like this anyway. So invaders explored in the mountains. So these 2 lands are both going to be reasonably easy to deal with. We can take one of them out with sudden ambush, and we can probably defend the other with words of warning, with a couple of Dahan in it. And yeah, I think that's actually what I want to do here. Is I want to use sudden ambush, so our explorer control power, to take out one of these 2 explorers, and then I'm planning next turn to set up. So this turn I need to set up Dahan so that next turn in one of these 2 lands I can play words of warning, our defend power, and that defend 3 will then stop the ravage and allow the Dahan to counterattack and clear the land. So in order to do that, we need 2 energy turn 1. There's a couple of ways we can do that. We can go growth 2 along our top track and get to the 2 energy spot, or we can go growth 3 along either track, although usually if I do growth 3 on turn 1, I'm going to go from the bottom track to play a second card. And then we can get that +4 energy to play Sudden Ambush. Now, I don't really like to do growth 3 on turn 1 if I can help it, just because I would much rather do growth 2 and get to that 2 energy so that we have the increased energy income all game. So I'm going to go ahead and use growth 2. I'm going to get our air element, and I'm gonna try and make sure I've got presence in every land with Dahan. The main reason for that is that I just want to be able to target things adjacent to all of the Dahan if possible. We maybe don't need to worry about that too much, but it can be helpful. So Sudden Ambush is our play. This is our Explorer control card. We do get Gather the Warriors, which is our Dahan movement power. So we'll get to gather up to 1 Dahan per air we have, push up to 1 Dahan per sun we have. We have 2 air and no sun, so we will gather 2 Dahan somewhere. Probably in land 5 or 8, whichever one we don't use Sudden Ambush on. To then decide where we want to Sudden Ambush, I'm planning on using it in land 8. And the main reason for that is I want to work towards generating what I call a pocket, where I get rid of as many buildings in the inland as possible, so that, for example, in stage 2, if there's no buildings in land 1, 7, or 8, land 8 won't explore if mountains comes up again. If I can stop all the buildings in 1, 5, 6, 7, and 8, then if sands comes up in stage 2, or somehow miraculously in stage 1 and I've managed to pocket already, then I can actually stop the explorer into land 7 as well. So we probably won't be able to stop explorers into any other lands that early this game because of the city in land 4. That makes land 6 very hard to pocket early on. And land 5 is adjacent to land 2, which has a city that's going to be hard to get rid of, and then everything else is, well, land 4 has buildings in it, so it's hard to pocket, and then all the coastal lands you just can't pocket. So, I don't want to finish using powers, excuse me. So, Sudden Ambush. I'm going to Sudden Ambush land 8, clear it out. I'm going to take the Dahan from land 1 rather than land 7 because I want to keep the Dahan in land 7 with the town for now so that I can potentially destroy that town on a future turn with my Lead the Furious Assault ability, which lets me destroy a town for every 2 Dahan in the land. I don't want to actually move my Presence Disc into land 8. I'd rather keep it with the Dahan that's staying in land 1. The reason for that is that I will be more likely to use that Presence Disc in land 2 or 5 in the future for doing something with Manifestation of Power and Glory, where each Dahan deals damage equal to the number of Presence Discs I have. And getting a Presence Disc from land 8 back out to land 2, for example, is much harder than getting it from land 1 to land 2. All right, the invaders explored in the wetlands, which is also great. We've avoided all of the buildings on the first 2 explorers, so that's kind of ridiculous. Again, Sweden is one where if they can't get their ravages to work, they can't do much at all. So, land 3 is going to be a bit of a problem, but we can probably either let that blight for 1 blight, or we can try and work on getting some Dahan down there next turn for the Ravage on turn 3. Gather the Warriors. I'd really love to pull this Dahan back out of land 8, but I can't because I need to get a second Dahan into land 5 so that the land empties when we counterattack with Words of Warning, our defend power, protecting against the town and the Explorer ravaging for 3 damage. So, since I want to keep 2 Dahan in land 7, we can keep the 1 Dahan in land 1 for now. We don't want to leave our Dahan this spread out when we get to the stage 2 card that's coming out, not next turn, but the turn after. But if we group up the Dahan from land 2 into land 5, and then we work on land 1, 7, and 8 on the turn after that, we should be able to get past that hump, basically, and not have any Dahan conversions. So I'm only going to gather 1 Dahan in. I could gather a second one, but again, I'd like to keep 2 Dahan in land 7, and since land 1 came up with wetlands, I do want to also keep a Dahan there. All right, turn 2. We're going to take a look here. We could go a couple of different directions here. The first option we have is to use Growth 2 again and reveal our fire and sun elements. Again, this makes Lead the Furious Assault's first functional level very, very easy to hit because we have lots of sun cards. Namely, Words of Warning has sun, so we could play Words of Warning and get both of our innate powers, this one because Words of Warning has animal, and this one because Words of Warning has sun, and that would be very helpful for us in terms of just getting lots and lots of actions. Now, the drawback of that is we stay on one card play for another turn, and that's not great, but we can do it. It's a build that I like, especially in multi-spirit games. The other main thing I would consider doing here is either using Growth 2 on the bottom track to get closer to this 3 card play spot. As I said earlier, I want to get to 2 energy, 3 card plays by the end of the game, because that sort of sets me up to really counter the invaders very effectively. But I could also get to 2 card plays and just be a little further away from 3 card plays by taking Growth 3 and getting a bunch of energy. That could be useful, for example, if I want to play Manifestation of Power and Glory, our big hammer this turn. Manifestation of Power and Glory also has sun and fire, so if we play it along with either of the other cards in our hand, we do get Lead the Furious Assault, our right innate that destroys towns. So I am probably going to set up for... I think what I want to do is set up for a Manifestation of Power and Glory play here, rather than trying to be cute and go too far down my top track at the moment. So I'm going to take Growth 3. I'm going to grow from the bottom track, get 2 energy. I'm going to place the presence. I don't want to have presence outnumbering Dahan if possible, because then your presence gets left behind when the Dahan move out of the land. So I'm going to put the presence disc in land 7, which is a little more accessible towards like land 6 and 5 than if I had put it in land 8. We still want to get this Dahan out of land 8 at some point, but it's not a huge rush right now. So let's play Words of Warning, our defend power. We want to defend 3 in land 5 to handle that Ravage. And then we're going to play Manifestation of Power and Glory, our big hammer, and we're going to use that probably in land 1 to deal with the Explorer and Town that builds. We might try and do something with hitting land 4 or land 2, depending on what explores. I don't really know for sure what I want to do on that yet, but I can think about that when we get to the slow phase. This unlocks Gather the Warriors with 3 air and 2 sun, so we'll be able to gather 3 Dahan and push 2 Dahan. So that's going to let us get that Dahan out of land 8 most likely. We could potentially do something like Lead the Fierce Assault, which destroys a town, in land 7, pull 3 Dahan into land 1, and then push 2 of them into land 2 to just clear out the inlands, but also get all of our Dahan closer to where this action is happening in lands 2, 3, and 4. So for now, though, these are the 2 cards we're going to play. We're going to finish playing cards. By doing this, I am kind of locking myself into taking a Reclaim Growth next turn, because we don't want to just play Voice of Thunder. It's not going to be a good turn if we have to do that. We could theoretically grow on the top track and get Voice of Thunder plus Lead the Furious Assault, but that's almost always going to be less exciting than just reclaiming, seeing if we can draft a good minor or a good major even potentially, and just getting access to Words of Warning, Manifestation of Power and Glory, and Sudden Ambush again. So Words of Warning that our defend power, our hammer, and our explorer control. So Words of Warning, land 5, defend 3, and now we get an event. Sacred Sites under threat. Invaders have begun to find hidden places of natural power. You may let the island's strength repulse them. Each sacred site pushes 1 explorer or town to an adjacent land. Remove 1 blight per player from the blight card, returning it to the box. So we'd go from 3 blight to 2 blight, but we would also get to push out of land 7 and out of land 5. If we really want to pocket, that's actually kind of a nice option. Because we could very easily push from land 7 into land 5 perhaps, and then push the town from land 5 into land 2 perhaps. They will build in land 1, so we won't actually be able to pocket this turn, but it would let us work a lot work a good ways towards getting that pocket on a future turn. On the flip side, guard them yourself for well or ill. Cost 3 energy per land where you do damage. Let me pull the full card back up. Aided by fire, and spend 6 for all. So there's 2 sacred sites. We would have to spend 6 energy, or get to 6 energy with fire assistance. And in each land with Sacred Site and Invaders, which is those 2 lands, either do 2 damage or destroy 1 presence from each spirit. This one is probably the better option, because then we can just hit land 7 and destroy it, and we can either just lose a presence in land 5, which is not a huge deal, because the land is about to clear anyway. Or we could try and find a way to actually pay an additional 3 energy and just the land's going to clear. I'd probably choose to just try and lose the presence, because that's a much lower cost than an additional 3 energy, I think, is to lose 1 presence on the board. So I think I'm going to guard them yourself for well or ill here. I should possibly say... Well, none of the rest of this is... Well, this is going to be relevant text beyond it in a moment, but we'll get to that. It's not going to affect our choice here. So let's guard yourself. We have 1 fire in play from Manifestation of Power and Glory. So we can either pay the 2 energy we have left, or we can go into our discard pile and forget Sudden Ambush. Sudden Ambush, again, is our Explorer control power. So you may gather a Dahan. Each Dahan destroys 1 Explorer. And that can be really nice, especially at clearing out lands like, if Jungle's Explorer and land 6 has an Explorer in it, we can just get rid of that Explorer and then the land is totally solved. So I don't particularly want to have to get rid of that power card. It is one of our weaker power cards on the whole, but this is one of the matchups where I think it does the most work. So I think what I'm going to do here... I don't feel amazing about this, but I think what I'm going to do is just pay my 2 energy and keep Sudden Ambush. Yeah, I'm gonna pay my 2 energy and keep Sudden Ambush. I'm not actually sure that that's correct. In part because, again, there is more text on this event, and especially the last bit, Spirit Speakers solve riddles of power. Each spirit with at least 4 Dahan among its lands gains a minor power. We're going to get another power card this turn. And so that would help replace the one that we forgot for the cost of the top part of the event. So, we're going to go ahead. We've paid 3 energy. We're going to go ahead and skip here. We will choose land 7, and we're going to deal 2 damage. And then in land 5, we will lose a presence disc. Beast's Prowl. Each beast generates 1 fear if invaders are present and moves to an adjacent land if not. We don't have any choices to make here. We just get a fear for the beast being in land 3 with an explorer. And then Spirit Speakers solve riddles of power. We get to gain a minor power because we're Thunderspeaker and we have 5 Dahan among our lands. We often just have 6 or more, even if it's a multiplayer game. But we're gonna get that minor power. So our choices are Dire Metamorphosis, slow power for 1, range 1, targets any land, 1 fear, 1 damage to Dahan. Add a Badlands, a Beast, a Disease, a Strife, a Wild, and a Blight. It adds all the tokens, more or less. It has Animal Element and Air Element, which are both relevant to our innate powers, which could be useful. I have very mixed feelings on this card. I think it's really cool, and I also very rarely take it, in part because it adds the Blight, and and the 1 damage to Dahan is scary, but it can also sometimes just solve a land like twice over, which is kind of amazing. So I'm gonna look at the others and come back to that one and think about it. So second up is Here There Be Monsters, 0 cost, slow power, range 0, inland. So you may push Explorer, Town, or Dahan, generate 2 fear. If target land has any beasts, 1 fear. So our beast right now is in land 3 on the coast, so we're probably not going to get that 3rd fear very often with this one. This does also have Animal and Air, so it's kind of nice in that regard, although it does lack Sun and Fire, which means that if we took this, it'd be more focusing on our left innate and moving lots of Dahan than focusing on our right innate and destroying towns. It's definitely something that'd be interesting to take potentially, especially because it costs 0. 0 cost minors are often very nice. Now, Pact of the Joined Hunt costs 1, slow power, technically targets a spirit. Target spirit gathers a Dahan into one of their lands, 1 damage in that land per Dahan present. It's kind of a mini hammer, much like Manifestation of Power and Glory, where instead of each Dahan dealing 1 damage per presence disc, it's just 1 damage per Dahan. It does have Sun and Animal, which is a really nice combo for us. So this, and damage via Dahan is actually really nice for us too, so this is very tempting. And then Uncanny Melting. Uncanny Melting has Sun Element, which is nice. It costs 1. It's slow. Range 1 from a sacred site. Targets any land. If invaders are present, 1 fear. If target land is sand or wetlands, remove 1 blight. The only blight on the board right now is in land 5, which is a mountain. So Uncanny Melting is probably not going to do much for us. There's a chance that one of these 2 wetlands will blight next turn, but I don't think this is going to do enough. So, I'm going to go back and say, I think Pact of the Joint Hunt is the one I want to take. I think there's a case to be made. This is the, gather a Dahan in and 1 damage per Dahan. So that's really nice. It's another hammer, basically. And importantly, it's a cheaper hammer. Manifestation of Power and Glory costs 3. Pact of the Joint Hunt only costs 1. Here there be monsters, on the other hand, gets us more fear, which could be really nice for pushing towards Terror level 2. And helps with pocketing if we want to be able to push explorers and towns out of the inlands. It also can push Dahan, which is kind of nice. It can we use it on a land, push the Dahan out, and then move our presence disc along with it. But I think I want to do Pact of the Joint Hunt here. So I'm going to take that. Get a second hammer. All right, land 5 clears, the wetlands build, invaders explore in the jungles. Okay. So this is nice. I think that what we're going to be able to do here is really establish our pocket, because we're going to be able to deal with land 1 this turn. We may or may not deal with land 3 next turn, but we can also, if we reclaim, take sudden ambush back and solve land 6 very easily, which would then set up that land 7 and 8 pocket, so that if the invaders explore sands or mountains, they only get 1 of those 2 lands explored, which saves us a bunch of resources effectively. The other thing we could do, actually, is a kind of goofy play where we use Manifestation of Power and Glory to deal very little damage. This is normally our big hammer that we hit a lot with. But we could actually just get a Dahan and a presence into land 6 and solve the Explorer this turn instead. And that might not be a crazy idea, because then we actually have the Dahan, or we have the land clear. The downside of that is we don't want to leave a lone Dahan in here. We probably want to probably get 2 Dahan in there somehow, or work on getting that other Dahan in there in the near future, because we do not want, if Jungles comes up again in stage 2 with the escalation, which is the after invaders explore into each land, if that land has at least as many invaders as Dahan, replace a Dahan with a town. We really don't want that to happen. That's so bad for us again. So I probably am not going to try and do that play. I think instead what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try and actually clear land 2. Which may seem a little silly, but it gets our Dahan closer to land 3 to help deal with that later. It helps us get Dahan closer to land 4, and we can do it along with dealing with land 1. And then all of our Dahan should end up paired up in empty lands, so that when the escalation comes, there's at least 2 Dahan and no invaders in each of those lands, so we won't get any Dahan conversions. So let's gather the warriors. We can gather 3 Dahan from lands 7 and 8 into land 1. So we're taking advantage of that really long land 1. And then we're going to push 2 of those Dahan from land 1 into land 2. And we're going to move 2 presence discs with it. Lead the Furious Assault. Destroy a town for every 2 Dahan in target land. We're going to use on land 1 to take out the town. So now land 1 is effectively solved. And then Manifestation of Power and Glory, we're going to use in land 2 to deal 4 damage, and that land is effectively solved. So now we have some choices to make. Before we got the draft from the event, I definitely wanted to reclaim. Now I'm not so sure, because we can play both of these, and since Pact of the Joint Hunt has Animal, we get our left innate, which lets us move Dahan around. And if we decide to take the fire spot, we could then also get our right innate, because both of these have sun, even though neither has fire. we could get this destroy a town for every 2 Dahan again. And then Pact of the Joint Hunt also we could use to potentially deal some extra damage, clear maybe one explorer, or even potentially clear a building, depending on how we move Dahan around. I think the other option, though, is if we don't try and use Growth 2 or 3 this turn, we can reclaim. It gets us Sudden Ambush back, which solves land 6 very cleanly, and gets us that pocket in land 7 and 8. I say that's very cleanly, but it's not actually that clean, because then it splits up our Dahan pairings. So I don't want to do that. I'm not gonna do the Sudden Ambush play here. Instead, I am going to go for... So I talked about getting the Fire Element. The other thing I could do is add 2 presence and get to 3 card plays, because even though I don't have 3 cards to play right now, after I reclaim next turn, I'll be able to play 3 cards, and I already have the unlocked Air Element, which means I can get both of my innates sped up from slow to fast if I play 3 cards. That is fairly tempting as well. I'm also feeling a little tight on energy, and so I'm thinking about maybe even doing Growth 3 just to get the Fire Element. There's a few different ways we could do it. I guess let's take a look at the board state again for a moment and actually think through that aspect of it. We need to clear the city in land 4, because we're not going to get to Terra level 4 probably. We need to somehow blow this up. We could do that with Pact of the Joint Hunt. We could do that with Manifestation of Power and Glory. So Pact of the Joint Hunt is our sort of small hammer, and then Manifestation of Power and Glory is our bigger hammer. Each Dahan deals damage equal to the number of your presence discs in target land. Pact of the Joint Hunt is just 1 damage per Dahan. So if we get 3 Dahan, or we can deal 3 damage with Pact of the Joint Hunt. If we get 2 Dahan and 2 presence discs into land 4, we can deal 4 damage with Manifestation of Power and Glory. That would let us actually clear the land out entirely. We also want to deal with land 6 in some capacity this turn, or at least set it up for maybe a counterattack defend next turn. I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to let land 3 go for now. So it's going to blight. It's not going to double blight, and we're playing Sweden 2. Higher difficulties of Sweden, especially Sweden 5, can be scary when you allow any blight down, but we're not going to have to worry about that right now. So all that it's going to do is get us from 3 blight down to 2 blight on the card, and that's not a huge deal. So we're going to just let that land go. Land 1 is basically solved as long as we don't get a bad event. If we do get a bad event, that can happen. We'll figure out a way to deal with it. Instead, I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and grow getting the extra energy and taking the Fire Element. I'm going to put the Presence Disc in land 5 because, again, I want to have Presence Discs equal to the Dahan, so I don't want it in land 2. I could put it in land 1, but right now land 5 is closer to all of these problem areas that we need to clear out in order to win the game. We'll play Voice of Thunder. We'll play Pact of the Joint Hunt. Voice of Thunder, again, is our push 4 Dahan, or up to 4 Dahan. Pact of the Joint Hunt, 1 damage per Dahan in a land where we have presence, and we get to gather Dahan in first. That gets us both of our innates, so Gather the Warriors, we're going to be able to gather 2, push 2 Dahan, and then Lead the Furious Assault, we're going to be able to destroy a town for every 2 Dahan in target land. I'm thinking right now, if I can finagle this right, I'm going to use Lead the Furious Assault, our destroy a town power, to solve land 6. I'm going to use Pact of the Joint Hunt, probably to try and solve land 4, our 1 damage per Dahan. And I'm going to use Voice of Thunder and Gather the Warriors, so our Dahan movement powers. I'm going to use those in order to get the Dahan where they need to be in order to enable that. So let's finish playing cards. We start off with the event. Far off wars touch the island. All right, this is a fun one. Invaders from a different, distant land launch an assault upon the island while the invaders here rally together in a wave of nationalism. Defending the island with them might come at too high a price. So first we add a fear card to the top of the fear deck. That's really annoying because we wanted to go in at terror level 2 probably, And now suddenly that's 4 fear further away. The downside, is that this is going to push us way towards being able to just clear the entire island of invaders. So, on each board in the land with the most buildings, towns, or cities, choose for that board either Encourage the Destruction, which generates 4 fear, which would immediately get rid of the fear card or earn us the fear card that we just added. Destroy half of the towns rounded up and half of the cities rounded up. Add 2 blight without cascading. That is a lot, but it could be very good. And then blunt the offensive. We can destroy a town, but do not gain fear. Then ecosystem damage. On each board, added Badlands. So that's a +1 damage token to a land with blight. And then return to Old Pillars. On each board, gather 1 or 2 Dahan into a land with Dahan setup symbols. So on this board, that's lands 1, 2, 5, and 7. So there's a lot of things going here. So we can choose... So if we blunt the offensive, we will take no blight this turn, because we can destroy the town in land 3. We don't get any fear for it. I'm going to check the fear deck for a moment. We are now, because of that event, instead of being... Let's see, we had earned 1 fear card, and we had 3 fear earned. So we were 5 fear away from getting to Terror level 2. We are now 9 fear away from getting to Terror level 2. So if we do it in land 3 and we blunt the offensive, then we will basically be safe on blight. If we do it in land 3 and encourage destruction, or do it in land 4 and encourage destruction, we will go blighted, which could be fine. It could be terrible. I don't know. That's part of the uncertainty. But I think that's kind of the more interesting option. And also potentially lets us win the game this slow phase if we don't get a blight card that gets in our way. Or even get the blight card. We may get a blight card that helps us. Who knows? So I think here I am more interested in taking sort of the gambling option of encouraging the destruction and taking out the city in land 4. That's not necessarily the right option, but it is the one I want to try here. So I'm going to choose land 4. I'm going to encourage destruction. And that's going to generate 6 fear. 4 from the card and 2 from the event. Or 2 from the city, excuse me. 4 from the event, 2 from the city. Ecosystem damage adds a Badlands. We can put that in either land 4 or 5. I think land 4 is going to be slightly better for that. I don't know. I'm not totally sure about that either, but I don't think it's actually going to be relevant, because even if Sands or Mountains comes up, this isn't going to be a huge deal. And then return to Old Pillars. On each board, gather 1 or 2 Dahan into a land with Dahan setup symbols. So here, I think what I want to do is gather 2 Dahan. I think I want to gather 2 Dahan from land 1 into land 2. Oh no, because then the Explorer doesn't die. Excuse me. I'm going to gather... Oh my goodness, what do I actually want to do here? Let's gather the 2 Dahan from... Let's gather the 2 Dahan from land 2 into land 5, maybe? Does that make sense? Because then we have 4 Dahan in land 5, and we can push them with Voice of Thunder. And then we can set, which is our push 4 Dahan card. And then we can use Gather the Warriors to slingshot some Dahan into land 3, and Voice of Thunder will probably already get Dahan into land 6 for what we need to do there. Yeah, let's do that. I think that's going to be better than trying to gather just 1 Dahan and exposing ourselves to risk with the escalation effect. Again, the explore into each land. If that land has at least as many invaders as Dahan, replace Dahan with a town. We really want to avoid that. So let's do this. I don't think any of these are particularly good for us, but it is manageable. All right. We have 3 fear cards. I didn't comment on that earlier, but the first one is Nerves Fray. Each player adds 1 strife in a land not matching a Ravage card, so that doesn't have a choice. It must go into land 6. Next fear card, each player chooses a land to isolate. Okay, isolate is an interesting mechanic. If you don't know what it is, it stops invaders from exploring into that land, and it lets you pretend that that land is not adjacent to any other land for the purposes of invaders specifically. It's still adjacent in terms of Dahan, it's still adjacent in terms of Blight, it's still adjacent in terms of beast tokens, and you can, in fact, allow it to be adjacent in terms of invaders if you want to. This is going to be really nice for us because we can isolate land 6, and that is going to let us do this pocket that we wanted to do for lands 5, 7, and 8. So we're gonna pick land 6. And then we get another fear card. Each player adds a strife in a land with Dahan. And again, no choice, that goes into land 1. Because that is our only land with invaders and Dahan. So invaders ravage in the wetlands. We'll choose to do it in land 1 first, so that land empties, and then land 3 blights, and the island blights. Attenuated essence. Each invader phase, each spirit with at least 5 presence on the island destroys 1 presence. That's really not that bad for us. We're not going to need more than 5 presence in general. 4 blight per starting board. That's plenty to work with. We will be totally fine. All right, invaders build in the jungle. They build in land 6, but they do not explore from land 6. Unfortunately, or fortunately maybe, they got a wetlands explore, so land 3 now is more built up. So let's see here. I think I want to try... So I want to use Voice of Thunder to get 2 Dahan into land 6, and I believe 2 Dahan into land 4 or land 2, either one. So this is our push 4 Dahan power, and gather the warriors, which is going to gather 2, push 2. I'm going to use to put those 2 Dahan into land 3. No, that's not right. I'm going to use it to bring Dahan from land 1 into land 3. Because then if I Pact of the Joint... Well, okay. What am I saying? We want to use Pact of the Joined Hunt, our 1 damage per Dahan power, to clear either land 3 or land 6, most likely. And yeah, I think it's going to actually have to be land 6, because I don't think we're going to be able to get 4 Dahan into land 3. Pretty much no matter what we do. So we will plan on trying to use our Town Destruction, lead the Furious Assault in land 3, and then somehow clear those explorers next turn. This is going to be a little... Well, what am I saying? Because land 6 is going to ravage next turn. So we can take advantage of that to do a counterattack. So let's go Voice of Thunder, push 4 Dahan from land 5. I'm going to push 2 into land 6. I'm going to push 2 into land 2. Yeah, 2 into land 2. I'm going to move 2 presence discs with each one of them. And then I'm going to lead the Furious Assault in land 6, so then that Explorer will clear next turn. Pact of the Joined Hunt and gather the warriors. So we've got our 1 damage per Dahan in a land, and we've got our move, gather 2 Dahan, push 2 Dahan. I think what I'm going to do here is try to be... Can I be greedy in some way? I'm trying to think if I have a way, because we have an Explorer in land 1 and an Explorer in land 3 that's going to be left over after we do this 1 damage per Dahan. Because again, we can't quite get 4 Dahan into land 3. But we can get 3 Dahan into land 3, while still leaving 2 Dahan in land 1. So I think I'm going to try and do that, and just see what we can do with some mix of sudden ambush and whatever we draft next turn. So we'll gather 1 Dahan from land 6, 1 Dahan from land 2. We'll move presence discs along with them. And then we will push those Dahan into land 3. And we will Pact of the Joined Hunt ourselves, gathering a Dahan into land 3 from land 2. We do want to move our presence disc along with it, and we will deal 3 damage. Oh, actually, this is great. Crazy thought that I didn't think about before, and I don't know why I didn't. Lead the Fierce Assault. We can make fast, can't we? Or no, we don't have 3 card plays. Never mind. Crazy ideas, too crazy. Okay, let's destroy this town and the Explorer. See if we can get something else that'll let us finish clearing off the land in our draft. So we have no cards in hand. We definitely want to take Growth 1, reclaim our cards, gain 2 power cards. We have 7 energy to work with this turn, and we want to destroy things in the fast, ideally. So I kind of want to just go for major powers here rather than minors, because I don't think there's... I'm pretty sure there's not many minors that will let us do that, but I think there are probably some majors that would. So let's go ahead and gain a power card. Let's gain a major. I might have regrets here almost immediately, but let's do it. All right, so we got 4 options here, and I think we just won the game, so that's great. First up, Flow Like Water, Reach Like Air. Target spirit gets +2 range with all powers. Target spirit may push one of their presence discs to an adjacent land, bringing up to 2 explorers, 2 towns, and 2 Dahan along with it. If you have 2 air, 2 water, the moved presence may also bring along up to 2 cities and up to 2 blight. This is a really cool one. It's not going to be our pick this time. It's because it doesn't have an immediate destruction effect, which is what we're looking for. The Land Thrash is in Furious Pain. Slow power for 4 energy. Range 2 targets a blighted land. 2 damage per blight. For each blight and adjacent lands, 1 damage in the target land. Would not actually be crazy given how much blight we now have on the island. But again, it's slow and it's not the damage we want. Repeat this power in adjacent land if you have 3 moon and 3 earth. Voice of Command, which, this doesn't deal damage to... I was thinking this would actually get us there, but no, it only damages towns and cities. So if we had left the town instead of the Explorer, we could have used this to win the game. Oh well, whatever. So this is a fast power for 3 energy. Range 1 of a Sacred Site targets a land with Dahan. 1 damage per Dahan or Explorer to towns and cities only. Defend 2. During Ravage actions, Explorers fight alongside Dahan. If you have 3 Sun, 2 Air, first gather up to 2 Explorers, towns, or Dahan. And then our last choice is Volcanic Eruption, which costs a massive 8 energy. Slow power, range 1 from a mountain, targets any land, 6 fear, 20 damage. Destroy all Dahan and beasts, add a blight. If you have 4 fire, 3 earth, destroy all invaders, add wilds. In each adjacent land, 10 damage. Destroy all Dahan and beasts. If there are no blight, add 1 blight. This is a crazy card, but it's not going to do anything for us. So I was going to Windmill Slam Voice of Command, and then I realized that it does not work. So I think instead we're going to take... I guess let's take Flow Like Water, Reach Like Air. This is the +2 range with all powers, and we may push one of their presence discs to bring... Oh, actually, no, this wins us the game. This wins us the game. Because we can push a presence disc from land 3 into land 2 and bring the Explorer and Dahan along with it, and then they'll ravage because the jungles are about to ravage, and 1 Explorer versus Dahan leads to a dead Explorer. So yeah, no, we're fine. We're fine. What am I talking about? What am I talking about being worried? Oh my goodness. I apparently haven't played this game enough recently. And then, so that's going to get us the win on the Ravage. We will have to get through the event, which could mess us up somewhat. But I think we can do that pretty safely. Well, yeah, we should be pretty safe. So I'm going to draft a minor instead of a second major, because I think we have a plan with Flow Like Water, Reach Like Air. And the minors we have Call to Ferocity, gather up to 3 Dahan, 0 cost, slow, range 1, a land with invaders. You can gather up to 3 Dahan, or if target land has Dahan, you may generate a fear and push an explorer in a town. This is actually a really nice one for Thunderspeaker in general. It has sun and fire elements, which we really love. Gathering up to 3 Dahan is amazing. Pushing things out can be really amazing. Just a nice power all around for us. Enticing Splendor, fast power for 0, range 0, and must target a non-blighted land. Can gather a explorer or town, or gather up to 2 Dahan. Has sun and air, both good elements for us. This would probably be really nice if we hadn't taken as much blight, and it might still be nice enough to take, but I don't think it improves our plan over Flow Like Water, Reach Like Air does, which is our major that we just got. Sucking Ooze. 0 cost, fast power, range 1, targets a sand or a wetland. 2 fear if invaders are present, isolate target land. Now I'm realizing actually, I didn't actually check how close. Okay, we're actually 1 fear away from terror level 2. This just wins us the game in the fast phase because we only need 2 fear and there are no towns or cities left on the island. So that's actually going to be what we do here, is take Sucking Ooze and play that. It isolates target land. We talked about isolate a little bit earlier with the fear card that caused an isolate. Yeah, that's going to just win us the game. And then Territorial Strife, 0 costs, has sun, fire, and animal. This is an amazing card for us elementally. Slow power, range 1, targets a land only with a city. 3 damage to explorers or towns, or add a strife. This is a wonderful Thunderspeaker power, but we are not taking it because it does not win us the game the way that Sucking Ooze does. So we're going to play Sucking Ooze, and I guess we can play Sudden Ambush as well. We don't need to, but we can. So let's do that. We'll finish playing cards. We'll take out the Explorer and land 1, and then we will target land 3 with Sucking Ooze and get 2 fear, go to terror level 2, isolate the land, and win the game because there are no buildings left on the island. All right. So the game is over. We did manage to win. I feel like I've just talked a lot. I'm checking my timer and oh my goodness, I'm over an hour. Hopefully that was actually helpful for you all. If this is something where you want to like try and dig deeper into thought processes, or if you aren't as familiar with the cards, we actually won that game ludicrously fast. That was turn 4 that we won there. So we only took 1 escalation potentially, or we only had 1 escalation symbol flipped that entire game. So we didn't have to worry maybe as much about Sweden's escalation effect as I thought we did. Yeah, I think that was fun. I think it was heavily defined by that event that cleared out the city in land 4. The Far Off Wars touched the island, where we got to destroy the city and generate a bunch of fear. But yeah, let's see. To talk a little bit about the targets, we wanted to get to 2 energy, 3 card plays. We did not. We actually got to 2 energy, 2 card plays, and a fire element, which is not at all what I was expecting to have happen here. But again, we kind of got a little bit lucky with that event, and that sort of pushed us towards doing a Terror level 2 victory, where we just generated enough fear to win without any buildings on the board. We did get to Terror level 2. That was great. We didn't let Sweden convert any Dahan. That was great. And we avoided all the double blights. I don't think we were particularly at risk for any, actually, but we didn't get any, so that's great. I don't know that there's anything else to say about this game particularly. If there is anything that I didn't cover well, that I covered too much, please sound off in the comments. Let me know, or you can join me on Discord. I'll have a link in the description to my Discord server, and you can chat with me there. We don't always chat all that much there, but you can definitely join there and ping me, and I will try to respond. Yeah. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great rest of your day, and hope you enjoyed Spirit Island Unpacked.